About 6 months ago, I was running a parenting class in the basement of a shelter in Lancaster County. And a woman came up to me after this hour-and-a-half long session, and she stopped me and she said, "Lisa, I don't think you realize what you just said." And I was a little concerned at first because I thought, did I strike a nerve? Is she upset? Because she looked like she was going to start crying. And she was a single mom in the shelter with her 2 young children. She had been at 2 previous shelters. And she said, this was the line that changed everything for me. She said, "You said, Lisa, when you know better, you can do better." She said, "This changes everything for me. I don't know better. I don't know how to be a better parent. Will you help me do that? Because I want to do better." And for her, she believed that she was just a terrible person, a terrible parent. But what I helped explain to her was she had a cycle of abuse within her family. She had very poor models for parenting, and she didn't know better. And so when I said that line, "When you know better, you can do better," she realized she didn't know better. And so it relieved her of this horrible burden she felt as a 24-year-old mother of these 2 young children, and she had a severe abuse in her past. So I worked with her for 3 months as a one-on-one mentor in this shelter, and I helped her know better so that she could implement these things and be a better parent for her children, which included no more yelling and screaming and spanking. So when we're in the community working with others, we need to connect with individuals. So a passive individual says yes, yes, yes to a lot of things that aren't very important or make them feel passionate. And they do it again because they want people to like them and they want to make people feel good. The problem is what happens if you say yes to too many things as a passive communicator, you stop living your own life and you're living everyone else's life and all the things that are important to them. So an assertive communicator can say no when they need to. And of course, I say yes when I want to as well. So I want you to think about what kind of energy are you putting in the work that you're doing? What kind of energy are you bringing home every night if you had a really bad day at work? Because that energy is going to be contagious to your children, to your spouse, to your loved ones. So emotional intelligence can be contagious. So emotional intelligence, we are using the part of the brain that's the feeling part of the brain. And those 4 key areas include reading people or perceiving emotion, understanding emotion, managing, and using emotion. And for each of these areas, I'm going to give you examples of how I have used it personally and professionally. And you need to be thinking about how you can implement some of these ideas for the key areas in the work that you do. So reading people involves body language, and I have some really good books on body language. One of them is just called The Definitive Book of Body Language. And we have no idea what we're saying to people without even opening our mouths. We have no idea. 93% of what you are communicating to me right now is through your body language and your tone of voice if you speak. 93%. Think about how much we talk to kids. As teachers, as parents, we lecture, we talk. 93% of what kids are hearing is through our tone and our body language. So are we aware of our body language? Are we aware of what it's communicating to others? Do we know how to read the body language of other people? How beneficial is that when we're thinking about managing? So when I walk into the practice every morning and I greet the front desk, I do a quick scan of the body language. I take a look at how's everybody look. And there's one employee in particular who has everything that shows right up on her face. And so if she's irritated or she's tired or she's upset about something, she has a personal thing going on, I do a really quick read of her because remember, emotions are contagious. And so if I see that she looks like she's off, I immediately call her into my office to check in because I want to get a handle on that from the very start at 7:30, 8 a.m., not 3 p.m. when the virus has already started. So we need to be thinking, are we a good read of people? Do we know what some of these body language signals mean? Like when people don't give you eye contact when they speak to you. This is a big one. You want to be looking at people when you're speaking to them, and if they're constantly looking away, you might want to question that. Why are they looking away? Are they insecure, not confident, which is a key reason people don't give eye contact? Is it they're not telling you the truth? So we need to start cueing in to the body language. It helps you identify how other people feel, and it helps you catch things before they get out of control. So this is a key area for people, especially who are managing others. We're going to look at these, and I'm going to give you my opinions, my comments based on what I've seen parents dealing with. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is, what kind of a model are you? This is a big one. Years ago, I was out to dinner with some people related to my son's sports. And there was a coach, and he was kind of a prominent guy in the community, and all the kids knew him pretty well, and very outspoken. I'll just say that. And my son was sitting beside him. We ordered dinner, and the kids were there and talking, and the new no texting and driving law came into effect. And this was the words out of this man, this very large personality. He said, but I can get away with it. Those were his words, but I can get away with it. And he's a physician. And my son, we were going back in the car, and I said to him, guess who you will never be riding with again in a car? And I'll call him Mr. Smith. He said, Mr. Smith. And I said, why? And this was my son. He was probably, let's see, he's 18. What was that? 12? He was 12, something that went into effect. He said, because he's an idiot, Mom. His exact words. And I said, you're right. Here's a man who knows what happens when people text and drive, and what is he modeling right there at the table for his 3 boys, my son and other kids on this team, that I can get away with it. So my son recognized in that moment that would not be a good idea to ride with him. And so you can imagine when my son got his license and we started talking about it, if I would have been the parent in the car texting, not even while I'm driving, but at the red light, pulling my phone out of the purse, I'm so important that I need to look at these messages right now. It's sending a message when your son is 3, 4, 5, 6, the whole way till they're 16, they're watching you. So when you go to try to put rules in place, they may say, but Mom, but Dad, you do this, you do that. So the very first thing we have to talk about, what are we modeling? So what do you think about that? I'll never forget that. My son remembers that to this day. That this man said he could get away with it, that he was smart enough that he didn't have to worry about crashing his car or hurting someone. What do you think about the way we're modeling for the kids? What kind of things are we modeling, positive or negative? And then let your kids choose their tech activities. You know, if it's a certain time of day and you're having limits in place, you get an hour, or you get a half hour, or whatever it is that you choose. Let them choose what they do. Do they want to play a computer game? Do they want to watch TV? What do they want to do with that time? Okay? And of course, you would have limited choices for them. It's not going to be like whatever they want to do, but you would give them limited choices. They're going to make mistakes. And I want you to keep something in mind. Please remember to tell your child, no matter what age they are, their behavior is a choice. They choose how to behave every day. And so with that choice, you have the same choice, how to behave as a parent. So behavior is a choice. For your children, you need to increase your level of expectation for behavior. So many times, we do not, especially with the permissive style, hold children accountable for their developmentally appropriate behavior. So if you have a 7-year-old and you're still tying their shoes, or you have a 9-year-old and you're still ordering for them when you go to Ruby Tuesdays, that's not a direct That's not an appropriate expectation. You need to raise the level of your expectation for social and emotional growth for your child. So when we let our kids know that they're in control, which that's what you're doing, you're letting your child know they're in control, they really have a good sense of, I'm the boss, and if he even says no, I could probably get him to say yes. And so when you are afraid of the outcome, I call them school-age temper tantrums. I know adults that have adult temper tantrums in the workplace. Our spouses have adult temper tantrums sometimes. When somebody shows that they are worried about the outcome, you create a pattern of misbehavior. So in other words, you're saying to the child, you can behave that way, that's acceptable. Because you're not holding them accountable for having socially appropriate behavior on how to take no for an answer. And there's a really good book that I love. I met the author twice. His name's Dr. Bob Brooks. He's been at several conferences, and he talks about raising resilient children. And I had the opportunity to have lunch with him at one of the conferences. And I said, Bob, what would I ask parents? What's one thing I could ask parents to find out how resilient their children are? He said, just ask them one thing. How do they take no for an answer? And if the answer is, oh, they won't take no for an answer, or they'll throw a tantrum, or they'll beg and cry and whine, they lack resiliency. So that's a learned behavior. So when we stop being so concerned about what the outcome is going to be, and we hold them accountable for their behavior, the behavior disappears or decreases significantly.